Should you get the new Apple Watch Series 7 for your family or for yourself? Well, here are a couple things to consider before you do so. Now let's start with if the Apple Watch is right for your family or your parents. For me, yes. 100% hands down, I think it is worth it. And here's the top 5 reasons why. The biggest part of what really got me sold with the new Apple Watch Series 7 are the safety and the health features on the watch. So fall detection and SOS are the two things that really draw me to Apple Watch in particular. Because as some of you might know, I do have a Fitbit, Luxe in particular, and the fall detection in particular actually doesn't exist in all of the smartwatches, but Apple in particular, I think, designed it very well, where it is actually able to easily detect if you did fall. Let's say you're on a hike and you slip and you fall, or you're even in the shower and you slip and fall, or anywhere really. If you fall hard enough and the watch is able to detect that fall, actually give you a little buzz on your wrist to ask you if you're okay. And if you respond within a certain amount of time, I believe it's like 60 seconds or 30 seconds, then it doesn't do anything. But if you don't respond at all, it will actually help call emergency for you on your behalf. And I think that's actually a really good feature. I even have heard, I'm not sure if it's already available, that they will also have one for crashing, like car accident crashing detection as well. And it will also auto call emergency for you as well, which I think, again, those features, when you are really in an emergency, it's really hard to just bust out your phone in those moments when you need it. And can you imagine if you have a car accident? I mean, your phone probably already flew somewhere else that it's not reachable, maybe. So just having a watch on your wrist where if you're able to call or just ask Siri to call or just auto call for you, I think it's perfect. And I have heard stories while I was doing research that this have this capability of like fall detection where it's able to detect a very severe fall or hit and it's able to call the emergency on their behalf, and it really helps save their life because the people on the other side on the emergency is actually also able to know your exact location when the emergency is dialed. So I think that's super helpful. I also did a research where there was a story of a younger teenager and he was on a hike and he slipped and actually fell down one of the hike mountains, and he was saved essentially by the Apple Watch because it was able to detect that he was falling, and so they were able to get to his exact location and help save him just in time. So I think, again, those features are just super helpful. It's one that you never want to need to use, but it's super helpful when you do need to use it. The other piece that really got me sold when it comes to getting one for my family are the health features on the Apple Watch in particular. The ones that really stood out to me for the Apple Watch, and it doesn't actually necessarily have to be the Apple Watch because many of the smartwatches start to have this feature already. Even some of the Fitbit watches are the ECG app where you're actually able to hold your finger to the crown of the Apple Watch for 30 seconds and it's able to check if you have AFib or not, like irregular heart rate. I don't really know the details of it, and to be quite frank, sometimes when I read the app for my family, I don't even know what it means other than one is normal and the other is abnormal. But overall, because I am not a doctor by any means, I think just having something that you are using on a daily and is easy to access and is able to tell you whether or not you should just even see a doctor to have a checkup, to me is super helpful. And to me, for my family in particular, I think it's just so helpful that it's able to detect any type of irregularity, which is so helpful. The other thing, it does have blood oxygen app on the watch as well. It's able to also detect that, I think, by like 15 seconds. And to be quite frank, again, I don't even really know what those means. And sometimes when I read them, I'm just like, okay, what am I supposed to do when it tells me this or that? And I wish that the apps will be more precise on what exactly am I supposed to do if you're telling me this or that. What's the action here? Like, let me know, what do you recommend? I know they want to be politically correct or be on the careful side on what they say so they don't alert anybody by accident or not alert anyone when they should be. But no, I think some sort of recommendation or like give us a range of like what is considered normal just on the app, I think will be super helpful. But aside from the the health features, I also really love the Apple ecosystem overall. Like in the health app on your Apple phone, you're actually also able to share stats easily with your family, so that you could also, like for example, my dad will share his health stats with me, so whenever he checks his heart rate and things like that, if he's exercising, I also get like a daily refresh on those stats, which is great because sometimes you might not be able to call or talk to them all the time, and it's good if you're like thinking about them, you just want to make sure they're exercising and staying healthy. You could just kind of check the app to see, okay, yeah, like they exercised today, or like, okay, their heart rate is looking good, you know, things like that. So it just gives you a peace of mind if you just want to make sure your family is staying healthy and they're doing good in the most easiest way possible. And another thing that I do think the Apple Watch is very, very seamless and good for is being able to auto detect workout as well. And I do think they do it better than Fitbit in some way. Since I have a good comparison here, I do think the user interface of the Apple Watch is really just unbeatable. It's just like our iPhone. It's so smooth. It's buttery smooth. The touch responses is like one of the best, I think, in comparison to any other touchscreen devices. It is so smooth. I mean, I could definitely tell you sometimes, like even like tapping my Fitbit, like it's just not really responsive. I have to tap it really hard, scroll, tap, like it's just not that smooth. It's just what it is. Like it's just not that smooth. But Apple, it's like butter. It's just butter. It's so smooth. The interface is like an iPhone, and it's just great. It just makes you want to use it more when it's so super responsive. And I also really appreciate the GPS on the Apple Watch as well. So the one that I got for my family, I didn't get the singular plan, so you do need to have your iPhone around you if you're trying to make any type of calls or things like that. However, if you're exercising, so like my dad likes to exercise around the park near where he lives, and he doesn't bring his phone with him whenever he go exercise. However, the GPS on your phone is still enabled. It's still able to track around the area that you're near. So it's actually really helpful because sometimes my mom, for example, wants to know like, hey, I wonder if he is almost on his way back, so he could start making either breakfast or lunch for my dad. She could actually then just see it within the Apple Watch GPS tracking that, like exactly the location of where he is at. And I actually think the GPS tracking on the watch is a lot more precise than the AirTag, because my family and I, we have like a tracking system together just to kind of make sure each other is safe, and if they ever need me, I could actually go to them and just know their location, because sometimes they do not really know their way around because they don't really know how to use GPS on their own either. So it's great. I have got them an AirTag, and they would place it on their keychain, so if they do need me, or if we're trying to plan together for dinners and things like that, we could already see where we are within the radius. Now, the accuracy for sure in comparison to AirTag, Apple Watch wins 100%. It's actually a lot more precise, and it updates a lot more frequent. I don't know if on the back end, the way that they detect the signal is different. Like I know that it bounces off the iPhone network, right? So anyone around you that has an iPhone should be able to detect an AirTag nearby and things like that. However, I don't know why, because I have tried to use AirTags before to know exactly where the location is that my dad is at, but it's just not as precise as the Apple Watch, and it doesn't update as frequent as the Apple Watch. So Apple Watch 100% wins when it comes to usefulness of the GPS in particular. But do consider singular if your parent is not very tech savvy and doesn't really use the iPhone often anyway. So for example, my parents actually have the older iPhone, like it's like the iPhone 6s, which is really like the bare minimum of requirement of entry if you are trying to use the Apple Watch Series 7. So the iPhone in general is not as fast, the battery life is not as good. So when it comes to that, the Apple Watch 7 actually is a lot more better experience than the iPhone. So I don't know, it just kind of made me think about having the singular plan for the Apple Watch is actually not bad if you're not savvy user on the phone, and what you really need is just very simple things like quick calls and things like that. So it will be a good consideration. Another thing about the Apple Watch that I think is super useful, and I saw an uplift in usage when I got it for my parents, is actually using Siri. So I don't know if you already know this, but you could change the language on your Apple Watch and it reflects on Siri just like your iPhone. And so for my parents, they don't speak full English, and so I have helped them change the language on the Apple Watch to speak their own language, and it is just so useful. I see them use it all the time now, which is great, and I'm actually quite surprised how much Siris have adopted and learned different languages and the casual way of response nuances through time. So it's actually really helpful, especially on things like timer, clock, and things like that. It's actually a much easier to use Siri for on the Apple Watch than for you to like trying to find the little bubbles. Any of the little bubbles for older parents, I feel like it's not as useful because it is kind of hard, I would say, to like locate the little bubbles if you are like an older generation and you're not super tech savvy. So I think the best way to access those features really just to use Siri, Siri's, call it out and just demand the commands, and those are really helpful. And of course, answering phone calls, again, like I said, are super easy because look, I don't recommend anybody to use their phone if they're driving whatsoever. So if you don't have to, just don't do it. But if you absolutely do need to answer phone calls, I do think having an Apple Watch and answer short phone calls is actually much safer than having to dig in your pocket, in your purse while you're driving in the wheel and trying to find your phone, because that's actually a lot more unsafe. Like I've seen my dad, for example, when he's driving and someone calls and he's trying to go to his pocket, trying to find his phone, and while he has one hand on the wheel, I mean, it's just much easier to just be able to either use touch assistant where you clench twice and it answers the phone and you could talk like a walkie-talkie and then hang up with one clench than having to just find your phone that way. So I do think the easy way of answering phone calls are really good. So I mean, to sum it up, like those are the high level features that I do see my parents use it almost on a day-to-day basis. Well, okay, not the safety feature, but it's good that it's available for them in the day-to-day. But when it comes to day-to-day, honestly, there's not too many other than the obvious like answering short phone calls and Siri, and again the health detection and auto detection of workout, which I mean again does give you a motivation when you know that like, hey, you know, it tracks my steps and it knows that I'm running. So I think those are good. Now here's the big question: should you get one for yourself? Because that was the big question that I asked myself too after just seeing my parents use it, and I was able to play around with it and really learn about the capabilities of the Apple Watch, because I was super new to it as well. Like, I do not have an Apple Watch, I use a Fitbit. So after playing around with it and getting to know what it can do more day to day and what features I think will be useful to me, I have decided to wait. Yes, like I did not jump the gun and just buy my own. This is actually the one that I got for my dad, for example. I'm just sampling it some more, but I did get to play around with it a lot and really get to see what are the most useful features from the watch, and would that be something that I really look into optimizing with my life, making my life easier, more efficient, things like that. Like those are the things that I'll be looking after. And the answer is that I don't think I necessarily need it now. However, I did say the safety features are so great, where anything that will increase your potential of safety and could save your life, I think could be so worth it. So I do still plan on getting one in the future. I do want to wait to see the next generation one that's coming out, because through Mac rumors, I have heard that there will be new safety features as well as health features that are coming out that seem very promising. For example, Mac rumors have talked about that there are new temperature features that will be coming that potentially is able to detect fever or be able to detect things like ovulation cycle if you're planning to get pregnant, for example, and better sleep tracking overall. So those sounds very intriguing and very promising. And the other health features that I also talked about coming is things like having a way to check your blood pressure, which is freaking amazing. Like I think if they do come out with that, I might even consider getting my family a new one. And also detection of diabetes. Whoa, like if those two come at the same time in this end of the year, October, I mean, man, I might just rethink and just get my whole family a new Apple Watch. I mean, those are amazing features, right? Being able to detect blood pressure, diabetes, and detect if you have a fever. I mean, with this stage of life that we live in, I mean, that should be very helpful. And of course, like a new design change will be nice. I'm not in love, honestly, with the Apple design. This is actually kind of the main reason why I went with the Fitbit, because I have very, very small wrist, and just even comparing it to side by side, you could see like one is a lot bulkier than the other. I don't love the bulkiness of it. You know, for the most part, I feel like it's harder to make an Apple Watch look good. And yes, I do know that there are a ton of third-party accessories variety to choose from, but I don't know, there's just something about at least the ones that I have seen so far is just harder to dress up, harder for it to look more casual and less bulky. So I mean, I don't know, I'm hoping that the next design that they come out with, because this design phase has been like this for pretty much the entire time. Like from far away, I can't really tell all of the different generations of different Apple Watches, and I'm looking forward to change, and I hope that they will have more options for the Apple Watch face, so that maybe there's some that are smaller faces, thinner, I don't know, just some more options will be nice. So I'm also waiting for hopefully a design change as well. So I mean, with all of that, and given most of the stuff that I really do on a day-to-day would require a phone anyway, because for things like long text messages, entertainment, looking up for informations, and taking long phone calls, I mean, that's all is done through the phone for me. Like I need a bigger device to do that. I cannot do that on the Apple Watch. So I feel like I have time to wait, and I do want to wait to see if the next one that's coming, to see what it could do before I decide to get myself one. But I didn't want to wait to get my parents one, because again, I think the safety features, the health features, if I'm able, like I just wanted to get it to them as soon as possible. So I did get it for them this previous Christmas time. So I'm glad I did too. You know, I'm glad I did, because again, I don't really know if any of the new features is even coming out end of the year, and I would much rather just to have something for them that gives me a peace of mind to know that they have something extra to keep them safe and more alert when it comes to health related things and not. So I don't regret my decision at all to get my family a new Apple Watch in the last Christmas, and I'm hoping that there will be good new Apple Watches that are coming out soon, so that we have more options to choose from. But yeah, in the near future, I do plan on getting one myself as well, and then maybe donating this one to my other family member. But yeah, those are my things that I want you to consider before you deciding if you want to get your family an Apple Watch or yourself a new Apple Watch this year. I hope that was helpful, and I will talk to you guys soon.